Okay, good morning once again, one and all. So, in this today's particular video lecture, we'll understand the first part of module number 6, that is the rotor dynamics. Okay, so let us understand what is critical speed and the working of the shaft. Now, let us consider a shaft AB which is connected at the two ends with the bearings A and B, and the rotor of mass M is mounted on the shaft, and the CG of the rotor is at an eccentric distance E from the geometric center of the rotor, that is O1. Okay. Now, when the rotor is mounted on the shaft, its CG does not coincide with the axis of rotation, and the CG is normally displaced from the axis of rotation even if the amount of displacement is very small. Now basically let us understand why there is a eccentricity or displacement of the center of gravity, and this is basically because of the following one or more reasons. The causes are: the first is the eccentric mounting of the rotor on the shaft, second is self weight and mountings, third one is lack of straightness of the shaft, bending of shaft under action of CG in case of the horizontal shaft, and non-uniform or non-homogeneous distribution of the rotor material. And there are also some reasons like unbalanced forces. So these are the some reasons why there is a eccentricity or displacement of the center of gravity, and because of this exactly what happens and how the critical speed is generated or the working of shafts take place, that we will understand. Now let us consider that the shaft is rotating at an angular speed omega radian per second, and the corresponding shaft is the horizontal shaft. Now, due to the initial eccentricity which is created because of the reasons which we have already seen, the shaft is subjected to the centrifugal force when it is rotating, right? So let us say that this is a centrifugal force, CF, and centrifugal force is given by, you know that centrifugal force is mr into omega square, which is the general formula, right? Now, due to this initial eccentricity or the eccentric mounting of the shaft is subjected to the centrifugal force, or you can also call it as unbalanced force when it is rotating, right? Now, this centrifugal force basically acts outward or radially outwards away from the CG, the CG of the rotor, and this centrifugal force or unbalanced force makes the shaft to bend in the direction of eccentricity of the CG. Okay. Now what happens because of the centrifugal force or unbalanced force? Again, there is an increase in the eccentricity. Eccentricity increases. What is eccentricity? Eccentricity is nothing but the distance between this point O1, which is nothing but the geometric center of this rotor, and the CG of the rotor. So this distance E increases, and ultimately the magnitude of centrifugal force also increases, because centrifugal force or unbalanced force is given by MO into E into omega square, where MO is nothing but the unbalanced mass, that is the mass of the rotor. E is nothing but an eccentric distance or eccentricity, and omega is the speed of the shaft at which it rotates, or the speed of the rotor. So because of this, centrifugal force which acts radially outwards makes the shaft to bend in the direction of the eccentricity, and again increases the eccentricity, and hence the magnitude of centrifugal force also increases, and that is why the shaft may fail ultimately, right? Now due to this unbalanced force or the centrifugal force which acts radially outward from the CG, the shaft starts vibrating violently in the direction perpendicular to the axis of shaft, that is in this direction. Will vibrate in this direction, that is the direction perpendicular to this axis of shaft. Okay, and this phenomenon is called as the whirling of shaft, and the speed at which the shaft starts vibrating violently in the direction perpendicular to the axis of shaft is known as critical speed or the whirling speed of the shaft. So that we can write that as omega is equal to omega c. So when your omega is equal to omega c, where omega c indicates a critical speed. So when your speed, that is omega radian per seconds, is equal to the omega c, that is a critical speed, your shaft starts vibrating violently, and this omega c is called the critical speed, or it denotes the critical speed in radian per second. Now, at this speed, that is at the critical speed, the resonance occurs. Now, what do you mean by the resonance? The omega equals to omega n. And when your omega is equal to omega n, means what? Your corresponding omega is equal to omega n, and therefore we can say that your omega c is equal to omega n. right? Because the critical speed is the speed at which your omega is equal to omega c, and the resonance is the speed at which omega is equal to omega n. So your omega c equals to omega n. So the critical speed is equal to the omega n, and that is why we can define the critical speed as the speed at which resonance occurs. Okay. Now also at this speed, the amplitude of vibrations at which speed, a critical speed, the amplitude of vibrations of a rotor is excessively large and a large amount of force is transmitted. That is, Ft is nothing but the force transmitted to the foundation. And due to this critical speed condition or due to the working speed of the shaft, amplitudes of vibrations of rotor is excessively large and a large amount of force is transmitted to the foundations or bearings. Hence, it is important to find omega n, that is the natural frequency of the shaft, to avoid the critical speed, that is omega c, which may result in the failure of the system. So we have to uh, calculate, or we have to design omega n in such a way that your omega n is not equal to omega c, means what the critical speed condition will not occur and your particular shaft or the system will not fail. Now let us derive the equation for the critical speed of a shaft carrying a single rotor without damping. So again, consider a shaft at its equilibrium position or a static condition. The shaft is not rotating at omega radian per second. So let us consider a vertical horizontal shaft having negligible inertia and carrying a single rotor, and this figure A shows the shaft in a static condition. So first of all, let us define the parameters. So let us say that this O is the point O is the point of intersection of the bearing line. So this is the bearing line, point of intersection of the bearing line with the rotor. So this point O is the point on the axis of rotation basically. Let us say O1 is the geometric center of the rotor. Now at the static condition, when shaft is at the static condition, this point O and O1 both are at the same point, that it is a common point. Okay, and during the rotating condition, point O and O1 will have some distance in them. Okay, so let O1 is the geometric center of the rotor, G is the CG of the rotor, CG, which is at a distance E from the geometric center O1, right? So we have already seen the reasons of the eccentric mounting. Then m is the mass of the rotor. So mass of the rotor is also called as unbalanced mass. M is basically unbalanced mass. Why it is called unbalanced mass? Because it is at some eccentric distance E. The CG of the rotor is at an eccentric distance E from the axis of rotation or from the point O1. That is why this mass M1, that is mass M of the rotor, is the unbalanced mass. E is the eccentricity of rotor in meters. Y is the deflection of center O1 from point O. As I have earlier said that when the shaft begins to rotate, the centrifugal force will act radially outwards from the CG, that is CA. And because of the centrifugal force, what will happen? The shafts get deflected or shafts get bent from the center O1, and then the distance will be created between the point O and point O1, and that distance is called the Y, or the deflection of the shaft, because of the unbalanced force or the centrifugal force. K is the transverse stiffness of the shaft. Now we know that when there are different types of vibrations like longitudinal vibrations, rotational vibrations, as well as the transverse vibration. So the vibrations which occurs approximately perpendicular to the axis of shaft, so they are called as the transverse vibrations. In this case, the vibrations occurring are also the transverse vibrations. That is why K is being considered as the transverse stiffness of the shaft, which is nothing but a Newton meter. So basically, this transverse stiffness is given by F, that is the stiffness force is given by K into Y, but K is nothing but a transverse stiffness and Y is nothing but a deflection of the center. Okay, so this F is also called as a restoring force. It will try to restore the shaft to its original position, because which has been moved or which has been deflected due to the centrifugal force. And omega is the angular speed of the shaft radian per second, and omega n is the natural frequency of free vibration. Let us say that omega is equal to natural frequency of free vibration. So this is what we have assumed. Now let us consider that the shaft is rotating at omega radian per second. Now, as I earlier said that when the shaft will start rotating, what will happen? The centrifugal force will act outwards, away, radially outwards from the center point G. So this is nothing but a centrifugal force. Okay. Now there will be another force called as a restoring force. This restoring force will act exactly opposite to the centrifugal force, and this restoring force will try to bring the system to its equilibrium position. Now, because of this centrifugal force, a distance y is created, which is called the deflection, between this point O and this point O1. Clear? The distance y is created, or this y shaft is deflected at a distance y. I hope you have understand this. Okay. So now let us derive the corresponding equation. Now when the shaft is rotating, so at rotating condition, two forces are acting on the shaft. What is the first force? The first force is centrifugal force. This centrifugal force is also called as the unbalanced force. And the second force is nothing but the restoring force, which is trying to restore the shaft to its original position. So now this centrifugal force is the force which acts in a radial outward direction to the point G, and the centrifugal force is given by m into omega square into r, where r is centrifugal force is nothing but this total distance from the point O to the point G, right? Because initially the E is nothing but the initial eccentricity at the static condition. So during the static condition, I will write it as a point O1. So during the static condition, there was an initial eccentric distance between the O and G, that is E, and due to this rotating condition, there has been distance created from O and O1, that is a Y. So total distance from O to G is nothing but a Y plus E, so which is equal to R. So E plus Y is nothing but a R. So centrifugal force is m omega square E plus R, and restoring force is nothing but the stiffness force, which is due to the stiffness of the shaft, which is called as K into Y, because the deflection between Y is nothing but the distance between the point O and O1, or the distance between the point O and the geometric center O1. So these are nothing but the two forces acting on the shaft in rotating condition. Now, in equilibrium condition, the centrifugal force should be equal to the restoring force, right? So for the equilibrium condition, the centrifugal force should be equal to the restoring force. So what I can write? The centrifugal force should be equal to the restoring force. Okay. What is centrifugal force? M omega square y plus E equal to restoring force is nothing but the K into Y. So this equation gives m omega square y plus m omega square E is equal to K into Y. I can write this equation as Ky minus m omega square Y. So I can remove Y as a common, is equal to m omega square E. So from this I am getting K minus m omega square Y common is equal to m omega square E. So I am getting Y, that is a deflection, is equal to m omega square E divided by K minus m omega square. Now we will divide both the denominator and the numerator by the K. So I am getting as equation as m is equal, I is equal to m omega square E divided by K minus m omega square divided by K. So K divided by K will be 1, and m upon K is nothing but the 1 upon omega n square. You know that omega n square is equal to K upon m. Therefore 1 upon omega n square is equal to m upon K. This is what we know. So this m upon K is nothing but omega n square. So I am getting Y is equal to omega upon omega n bracket square into E as it is divided by 1 minus again omega upon omega n bracket square. Now this is not a final equation of your Y. You have to modify this equation. But let us analyze this equation. So let me call this as equation number 1. Now this from this equation number 1, what is clear? It is clear that the angular speed of the shaft omega, what is omega? Angular speed of the shaft increases. I will write here as omega increases, the deflection of the shaft y also increases, because y is in the, sorry, omega is in the numerator, and if omega is the designed natural frequency, let us say we have already designed, so it will not change. Let us say it is same. So as the omega goes on increases, y will go on increasing. So deflection of the shaft will increase. Now a time will come And let us say that this omega is equal to omega n, means what? The resonance will occur when the speed omega equals to omega n. What will happen? The resonance will occur, and the resonance, the speed at which resonance occurs is called the critical speed. So this omega is obviously equal to omega c or omega n. This y will become infinity, right? And so we can say that the speed at which the deflection of the shaft tends to be infinity, means what? The y approaches towards the infinity, so that speed is also called as a critical speed or working speed, means what? Your omega n is equal to omega c. Try to understand this. Okay, and the corresponding speed is called as a critical speed. You can define that the speed at which resonance occurs is called as a critical speed. Okay, so I can write that the critical speed or the working speed of the shaft is given by omega n is equal to omega c. So therefore, your omega c is obviously equal to same as omega n, that is square root of k upon n, that is square root of g upon del radian per second. So now I can modify this equation as y is equal to omega upon omega c bracket square into e, because omega c is equal to omega n, 1 minus omega upon omega c bracket square and square root complete. So this is my final equation number 2, and from which I can calculate the y, that is the deflection of the shaft. So when your omega c equal, when your omega is equal to omega c, and that omega c is obviously equal to omega n, the corresponding y will become infinity, right? I hope you understand this, and your shaft will ultimately fail, and this is called the equation for critical speed, or the equation of deflection for the critical speed. Now let us understand the range of a shaft speed. Now basically, let us say that the shaft speed is equal to omega and critical speed is equal to omega c. Okay, so these are nothing but two speeds, and the notation for the two speeds what we have defined. Now basically there are three ranges of the speed. The first range is if omega is less than omega c. What is the first range? The first range is omega, that is the shaft speed, is less than omega c. Means when the critical speed omega c, okay, your omega c is greater than omega. This is the first case. So in this case, what happens when your omega c is greater than omega? The deflection of the shaft, you have to remember few points here. If omega is less than omega c or omega c is greater than omega, the deflection of the shaft y is positive, right? It is always positive when your omega is less than omega c or omega c is greater than omega. So at this speed range, your deflection of shaft y is positive. Okay, so deflection of the shaft y is positive means what? Basically, there are three terms. The one is O, one is y, and one is e. Okay, so what is y? Y is nothing but the deflection of the shaft, E is nothing but the eccentricity, and O1 is nothing but the geometric center of the shaft. So basically, at this condition, the deflection of the shaft y and the eccentricity E are on the opposite side of the geometric center. Means, for example, the S will be between here, O will be somewhere here, and let us say G will be somewhere here. So this distance is nothing but the E. Okay, and this distance is nothing but y, right? And let us say this is O1. So distance between O1 and S is nothing but a y, that is a deflection, and distance between S and the G is nothing but the E. So at this corresponding range, the deflection of shaft y and eccentricity E are on the opposite side of the geometric center, that is S. Sorry, this is O and this is O1. What is O1? O1 is nothing but the geometric center. Okay, I hope it is clear to all of you. And the next case, let us understand the next case. The case number 2 is when omega is equal to omega c. So when this is the case, the speed of the shaft is equal to the critical speed, that is omega is equal to omega c. The deflection of the shaft y will tend to infinity. Okay, and the shaft vibrates with a large amplitude. I will write here, shaft vibrates with a large amplitude. Okay, and this may lead to the failure of shaft. This may lead to the failure of shaft. And the third and the last condition is when your omega is greater than omega c. Okay, so in this case, the deflection of the y is negative, and the deflection of and the eccentricity e and the y, this deflection y and the eccentricity e are on the same side of the are on the same side are on the same side of the geometric center of the rotor O1, right? So this O1 is not in between the y and e, as I have said there. So it will be like here, O1 will be here. Let us say this is the point O1. This is the point maybe G, and this is the point maybe O. So distance between the O and G is nothing but what? This is E, and this distance between the O1 and O is nothing but the Y. So this will be the case, right? So Y and E are on the same side of the O1. So basically, during this condition, that is when omega is greater than omega c, the rotor rotates with the light side outwards. Rotor, I will write here. This is an important statement. Rotor rotates with the light side. Light side. There are two sides of the rotor. One is the heavy side and second is the light side. So rotor rotates with the light side outwards. Okay, and in this case number one, when your omega is less than omega c, which omega c is greater than omega c, rotor normally rotates with heavy side on the outward, with heavy side outward. Okay, so these are nothing but the three ranges of a speed which we have to understand. I hope you have understand this lecture. Thank you so much.